If you follow my blog or site at all, you'll know that I never talk about airline stocks. And these are stocks that are commonly in the news. You're always seeing headlines about Southwest or American or any of the other popular airliners. And there's a reason why I never talk about or invest in these stocks, and I want to talk about that in this video. I think the airliners make very poor investments, and I'm going to discuss the 4 reasons why I believe this and why I would never invest in any of these companies. So airline stocks get an undue amount of attention compared to their market cap. They're constantly in the headlines, and most companies are only worth around $10 to $20 billion, if that. And I believe this has a lot to do with the fact that most people that are actively investing in the stock market are frequent flyers. They're business people, they're flying around a lot, and people like to invest in what they know, which is fine, but airliners just aren't a good choice. And you've probably heard about the American and U.S. Airways merger recently. This led to big short-term profits if you bought in before the merger or sometime within the last couple years to, American. But if you look at the 10-year picture, if you're a long investor, Americans drastically underperformed the market, even with the merger gains. So very few people who bought in, only people who bought in at the perfect time actually made good money off of this. You had to buy in very recently, within the last couple of years, and you would have done very well with American. But most people didn't do that. So you can't give credit to airline stocks when they've, you had to make the short-term play to make money. If you've been steadily adding money, since 2000, you would not be doing that great compared to just investing in the open market. So next I wanted to talk about why I don't like airline stocks. So first, the airline industry is notoriously difficult to profit in. If you can't make money in an industry, it's hard to, why would you want to put your investing dollars there? You want to put your investing dollars at the company that's going to turn that into more money so you get a return on your investment. So the last thing you would want to do is put your money in an industry that's known to be hard to thrive in. And, as an example of this, Southwest is, one of the most celebrated companies of our time. It's constantly in management books as being like the best run company ever. And if you look at the last 10 years, they've only generated a return of about 38%, which is poor. You could have just put that money into a stable blue chip stock like Johnson & Johnson, enrolled in their DRIP program, and you would have made 140% from an investment 10 years ago. Compare that to 38%, and we're talking about even a much more stable stock. Johnson & Johnson is a much more stable company than Southwest. Even though Southwest is a great company, they're just not in the right industry for generating a big return. And I would consider investing in airlines like trying to grow crops in the desert. You could do irrigation, build a greenhouse to protect from heat, pump water out into the desert and grow some crops, but you could also just spend about 1/100th of that money and buy a plot of land in, the breadbasket of America and grow crops there. So what I'm trying to say is there's just more fertile ground for your investing dollars. Don't put your money in an industry where the companies struggle to make a profit. That's not the way to a good return. So another reason I don't like the airline space is that air travel is not growing. I like to invest in industries that are growing. It's pretty simple why. If the industry is growing, then companies are more likely to grow within that space. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot less people flying today than in 2007 and still a little bit less today than 2008. And that's because air travel just isn't increasing, at least in the United States. And those figures include the both domestic flights and international flights to and from the United States. So it's not just domestic flights that are down. And you can check those stats on my blog, which is, the post is linked in the description. And, people might think that flight is growing because of globalization, which is, businesses doing more business overseas, which theoretically should increase business flights. The problem is it's being countered by digital business. And what I mean by that is not just e-commerce and that sort of thing, but I mean people conduct meetings on Skype. If you can have a video conference with someone around the world with the push of a button, what sense does it make to fly someone across the globe, waste a couple days in travel time? If you're a busy executive, you might not have a couple days to spend on a plane. And while huge business deals, people still like to do face-to-face transactions, you got to consider that as we're moving forward, the millennial generation, my generation, and people younger than me, we're very comfortable meeting online. We don't have to have a face-to-face meeting. And a lot of older business types look down on that. But the fact of the matter is, once these millennials start owning more and more businesses, they're going to be doing more and more virtual business, and they're not going to be flying. So air travel just doesn't seem like a growing space, and the stats confirm that. And when the industry isn't growing, there's no clear way for airlines to win, because the only way for them to grow is to take market share from one another. And the problem with that, companies can take market share from one another, happens all the time. The problem is with airlines, there's no clear way for them to get an advantage over one another, because fuel is a fixed cost and planes are leased. So a flight from point A to point B is going to cost each airline a minimum price. No matter how much they save on staff or cut on amenities, fuel is a fixed cost. They have to pay the fuel. And one company can't get an advantage over another company with types of planes. If the plane technology was better, maybe they could use less fuel or move faster, something to make their service better. But planes are leased by these companies. They're leased from Boeing or bought from Boeing or Airbus or whoever makes their planes. Southwest doesn't make their own planes, so they can't really have a technology advantage. If a company like Boeing makes a better airplane, all the airliners get to lease it. So it's no real advantage. The only way that airlines can sort of take market share from one another is to try to price their packages differently, or they could offer a bare bones package for cheap flights, and then do little upsells, charging for water and movies and pet luggage and that kind of thing. Or they could not charge for that and just charge a higher ticket price. So it really doesn't matter. Maybe the one airline has a little bit of customer service than the other, but better customer service is not going to drive people who are flying on a budget. They're going to go with the cheap airlines. So there's just no way for airlines to really grow, because not more people are flying. They'd really have to take from one another. And that's just, like I said, it's not very easy when everyone's got the same technology. And finally, the reason I don't like airline stocks is that they're just too susceptible to external forces. And what I mean by that is, fuel, which is a fixed cost, that price is very variable. It could increase drastically if a conflict broke out in a highly volatile Middle East. Airliners, I'm sure they buy futures to protect them in the short term. Which I mean by that is, like, you can say, well, I'll buy 100 barrels of oil in a year from now for $100 a barrel or something like that. And you can do that, and companies do that, I'm sure, for many years. But the problem is, when they go to buy their next set of futures, if the price of oil today is higher and it looks like it's going to go higher, those oil futures are going to go up and up. So even though they have the futures that kind of protect their margins in the short term, eventually that heightened cost of oil or gas could really put pressure on airlines. And if the cost of fuel went up, less people would fly, because a lot of people don't have to fly, especially with the internet like it is today. It's not like food where people have to buy and eat food. People could just stop flying and, the life would go on. And the other problem is, even aside from fuel, other things that are completely, outside of their control, like terrorism or even disease, could ground airlines overnight. Like after 9/11, a lot of airlines lost a lot of business. But even something doesn't even have to be something extraordinary. It could be just a disease, like the SARS disease, which is breaking out in Asia, and the Middle East respiratory syndrome, or MERS, breaking out in the Middle East. If we were to have something like that here, or if those outbreaks were to get worse, air travel could be tightly blocked, only domestic flights or something like that, and that could just kill businesses overnight, and there's nothing they can do about it. So the bottom line is, there's easier places to make money. As an investor, you have the luxury of putting your money where you want. And you should just invest in companies operating in more lucrative spaces. There's no need to try to grow flowers in the desert. There's other companies in more profitable spaces that will be happy for you to purchase their shares. And if you need help picking, head over to my site and check out the portfolio. I've got a free follow-along public portfolio that kind of shows my moves that I'm doing over time as part of a educational experiment for the site. So I hope you enjoyed this video and subscribe for the next one.